Hello, everybody. Welcome to Mistakes Were Made. We're here at the dining room table, and we are going to do a recap for November. Now, we should have done one for the first pay period, the 15th, or the 1st through the 15th, but time just got away from me. I have no really great excuse for not doing that, but it was just more, not feeling it sort of thing. And if you hear the tick-tacketing in the background, I have apparently disrupted Murphy's nap, so he is now moving on to some other place to go take a little bit of a rest rather than here in the living room. Anyway, so what I do have is I have the second half of November, which we have finished, put to bed. We are firmly in December now. And that is going to just show that particular pay period. We did not have anything unusual, over the top or anything like that during the first half of the month. The biggest difference that we had would be the water bill was just a slightly less than what we were expecting, and my spending the $30, I actually ended up spending $39 because I didn't cancel a free trial for something in time, so it charged me $8.99. So anyway, let's take a look at what we have for this second half of the month. We will do a, recap of where our priorities are at the end of this, and that will be essentially where those buckets stand as of the end of the month. Okay, so as a switch in, Gus has now arrived into the living room, and I don't know if he's going to let me film because he's being a little bit needy and acting like he's going to start whining. So we'll see how this goes. Hopefully we won't have too many interruptions, but let's get started. So I think I will, should I zoom in? Yeah, that looks a little bit better. All right, so with our income, you can see what we had as a guesstimate. Our actuals were $22.83.29 for Mr. M and $16.68 for 96 for myself. I think I'm gonna grab a little pen just so I can have a little thing like that. Our buffer rollover from the previous pay period was $200.87, which gave us a total of $4,153.12 for this pay period. Our mortgage cost was the typical $875. We had $250 for investing, which does break up to $125 for each of us. Then our costs here are mostly our utilities. For some reason, I wrote this really ugly. It was $151.23, and we are starting to see a gradual increase now that we are getting a little bit more firmly into the winter months. This isn't much higher than the previous month, but I have seen what our new electricity bill is going to be for December, and it has gone up a bit. It still isn't breaking the 175, but it's gone up a bit. Our gas bill is still down in a very reasonable kind of summer level. That has absolutely increased significantly. So you will be able to see that when we do our recap for the second pay period in December. Our internet bill, $100, phone bills, $87.96. So all told, the cost for our recurring costs, including mortgage, is $1,577.89. And that leaves us with $2,575.23 for income. We have our $25 infusion into the emergency fund, plus our buffer rollover for a total of $225, bringing us down to $23.50.23. And then we have our standard costs here with our sinking funds. Nothing unusual happened here. I think This month, December, that we are in, is a magic month for groceries. So, and if I'm not mistaken, it's heaviest in this first pay period that we are in now. So we will be seeing a slight difference in that groceries will be $300 for the first pay period and $200 for the second. But for this one, it was as normal. So yeah, nothing unusual here. Total is $711. Now, that said, I have been thinking pretty heavily about the whole license situation. The fact that I'm not really doing any amount of business with my Etsy shop that I feel falls into like a true business volume. It has fallen both in volumes and kind of my attitude and interest, etc., to more hobby levels. So I am not going to continue to get my business license. We have saved up the money for the business license for 2026, so that I will get that, but I am no longer going to continue to save money in that sinking fund. We are going to be taking this out effective this month, December, and obviously going forward. And so once my license, I'll renew it in 2026, and once it expires in 2027, I will not be renewing it again. Unless something miraculous happens and I have some business venture that I start that just takes off like crazy and would require me or would behoove me to have a business license, I think that is going to fall by the wayside. So we had already hit our goal for the licenses. So the fact that we are not going to be putting any more money in as of the end of this month, November, is not going to be an issue. It's not going to create any problems. But just as an FYI, that this is no longer going to be a line item in our budget. And in talking with Mr. M about, well, how do we want to handle that extra $22? Because there were a few things we could do. We could just reallocate it to something already in our list. We could decide to fund our one of our priorities a little bit more than we currently are, as like every month, every pay period, a one-off. Or we could do what we decided and just reabsorb it into our budget. And so, assuming that we stick to our standard costs and don't have any kind of unusual exceptions or unexpected things apply, then that $22 a month or $11 per pay period will essentially just get tacked on to our unallocated amount of money that we have at the end of each pay period, and thus it will get distributed as, according to our percentages into our priorities. So that is what we opted to do. All right, next is my spending for $30. I did manage to stay on target for that one. Here is where we are seeing, and that dropped us to $1609.23. Now, here is where we are seeing the first excitement in our budget in probably a long time. We did have some costs that we did not initially budget into this pay period, and they are definitely going to have an effect on what we have available at the end of all of this calculation. So here in the long-term goals period, we do have our $100 transfer that we do automatically, which is right now going towards carport replacement or fix. But there were a few items because of Black Friday and just sales that were going on that I really wanted to pick up for the garden. A lot of fertilizer things and a couple of tools that I've been watching, and they went on a very good sale. So I made the decision to purchase them now, even though we have not actually funded the garden yet. Our typical amount that we are allocating for the garden is $500 a year, which I think is, I don't know. I feel like that is a fairly generous amount, but I'm sure if we had a larger budget, we would figure out ways to spend it as well. We were very specific and deliberate in creating that budget amount to try and keep from, overspending on this particular venture. So what we're going to do is, because we've already spent $148, we will only fund $352 when we go about doing the garden funding. So it's coming out now. It is affecting our budget now, but we aren't just absorbing that 148 and then going to have an also $500 for the 2026 garden. The other thing that was very much unexpected, well, I guess it wasn't necessarily unexpected, because he had been having problems with it for a while, but we didn't have any particular plan as to when we were going to replace it. Mr. M's cell phone finally gave up the ghost. I don't know if I can say finally. It doesn't feel like it was all that long ago that he got a new one, but I'll be honest, the months and years really blend after 2020. So it could be that he's had it for a little while. I do know that it does tend to fall on the floor quite a bit, so that could also have something to do with it. It wasn't a cracked screen or anything that created the problem. It wasn't working anymore. So it was a legitimate problem, not I want to upgrade to something new situation. He did find something. We use Google Fi for our for our cell phones, and so we also tend to get the Google Pixel phones, and they were running a sale again. Thank goodness this happened around the Black Friday hoopla. He did find a phone that was on sale, and it was $399. So, a cost we weren't expecting, but, to me, a cell phone is an essential in this day and age. So, it is what it is. All right. So we go down here, we add that all together, and that makes our total $647, which drops our leftover income down to $962.23. So, it's times like these that I am incredibly grateful that we are in the position that we are in, because we have minimized our costs to a point where we are still getting what we need. We are still covering the costs that we absolutely need to cover as well. But we are not utilizing the entirety of the income that we get in each of the pay periods. And that has given us essentially a very robust buffer. And in this case, that meant we were able to absorb basically an extra $547 of cost that we weren't intending to be spending during this particular pay period. And it's still, even doing that, leaves us with money available to fund the areas that we consider to be priorities. So with that in mind, at the $962 that we had left, we were able to put $192 towards our mortgage principal, $192 towards both the emergency fund and the long-term goals, as well as added to our sinking fund, our cash envelopes for the car, health, house, and pets categories. They all got an extra $48. We also, of course, pulled out money to put towards our Roth IRAs, $72 each, and our fun and frolicking cash envelope also received $49, and then we have our buffer rollover change, the 23 cents that was left over here. So, I don't think I can verbalize just how helpful, how comforting. Oh, excuse me. I am not starting to cry. I am just apparently lost the ability to swallow my own spit for a second there. But I mean, it's not to say that being in the position that we are in wouldn't necessarily be emotional. Oh my goodness, it is a great feeling to be at a place where our income more than compensates the things that we need to pay for, the things that we want to pay for, and as we evidence here, the things that we weren't expecting to pay for. Obviously, if there is an emergency or some kind of cost that comes through, we can't always guarantee that this buffer that we have built in is going to cover it. But in a lot of cases, we will be in a position to be able to absorb that cost. So I would not have thought, a few years ago that would be the case. But then I'll be honest, I don't know if I would have recognized that would be something to be concerned about, because we really didn't pay that close attention to our finances. And our default was, if we don't have the money or we don't feel like spending the money out of our account, let's just put it on a credit card. So definitely a big mind shift since then, and the changes that we have made, the steps that we have taken, the care that we are now putting into our budget, and is doing what we can to make sure our money is working for us to our betterment, has resulted in being in this position. So that's where we are for the end of November for this particular budget. So where does that put us for our major goals? Oops. Don't wanna give that away just yet. Put this over to the side. Okay, so our emergency fund, we are currently at $6,989.17. And I did add a little bit of extra info here. So just shy of $7,000. That means we are 58.24% of the way to our current goal, which is $12,000. If you are new, first of all, welcome. I probably should have said welcome to everybody when I started this, but I wanted to jump right in. But if you are new, our goal for our emergency fund is to save the equivalent of what our monthly costs are by using our old costing back when we did have credit card debt, which was roughly $5,900 a month. That's how much we were putting out, whether it's for debt payments, utilities, sinking funds, just the whole shebang. And round that up to a nice round number, 6,000. And we want to save that amount for the equivalent of a year. So we want to have a year's worth of expenses saved as an emergency fund. $6,000. We have hit our first milestone, and we are now working on our next level, which is 12,000. So with our balance right now, we are at 58.24% of that 12,000 goal. We are also 9.71% of the way to that ultimate goal of $72,000. So quite a bit of a ways to go for this, but hey, we're over halfway to the 12,000, and we're going to continue pushing. Long-term goals, we are at $4,183, which we created an arbitrary dollar amount, total guesstimate. Haven't had somebody come and give us any, actual good numbers from an expert to go by. But we did an arbitrary goal of $16,000. That was kind of We think if we would have to have somebody tear down our current one and rebuild something new, that it would hopefully not be more than $16,000. And then the thought is, if the structure that we have in place is still usable, and the most that it needs is some kind of shoring up as well as the replacement of the roof portion, which that is a given. We absolutely have to get the replacement of the roof portion no matter what. That it would hopefully be even less than the 16,000. So we are 26.14% of the way to that particular dollar amount. On that, I don't know if this is a good thought process to be in, or what I should truly be taking from this. But if you know anything about me as far as this channel is concerned, you know I do a lot of video watching and I do a lot of doom scrolling. And I do pay attention to what a lot of different people are saying about the economy, the world at large, and things like that. And as I have mentioned in other videos, it is not looking good as far as what the future is showing us, especially with inflation, just costs in general, the whole job market, all of that. And so there have been a few people who I've been watching, and they have been advising against making any big purchases right now. And so I'm kind of on the fence, because we do need to get this carport fixed or replaced, but is now the best time to do that? On the one hand, structurally, it seems sound enough, but I don't know if there's any true concern from a structural standpoint about, could it fall over? It seems very sturdy, but, I'm not an expert. It needs to be handled, so it's going to need to get done at some point, and it seems like trying to engage somebody in, the fall, winter, very early spring would be the best time, because that seems like it's the opposite timing of when people who do construction type things are most busy. So one would hope that you would have a better opportunity of getting somebody to take on your project, but hopefully also get a little bit better of a pricing deal because they're looking heavily for work. But if things are as erratic and unstable as some people are saying, I can certainly understand the idea of holding off, especially if we are expecting to have a project that's going to cost anywhere from, I don't know, $3,000 to maybe $16,000 coming through. We've already seen volatility in both mine and Mr. M's job as far as layoffs and things like that. So, there's always going to be that kind of haze of concern about job security. Would it make sense to tie up or spend this money if something were to occur? Yes, we have our job loss fund, but if the worst of the worst happened and we both lost our jobs, that money is going to run out much more quickly than it would if it was just one or the other of us. So, that is something that we need to keep in mind as well. So I'm not sure if it's best to continue to pursue this. Obviously, if it did come in, if we did have somebody or a few people come in and give us bids and they were landing in that, 10,000 plus realm, it wouldn't matter. We would have to delay anyway, because we do not have $10,000. So I don't know. I don't know what the best answer is. I am also being very lazy about calling people, so it's working in my favor to be like, oh no, yeah, we should totally hold off on doing any big projects. Oh Lord, I don't know what it is. I mean, inherently, I'm fairly introverted. It's one of the reasons why I do my channel this way. I am not on the other side of the camera. I have had a channel where I was on the other side of the camera and I was fairly uncomfortable about it. I don't like to be at the center of attention. And with all of that, I also don't enjoy doing very simple adult things like having to call people and schedule stuff and just normal things. It's not my favorite thing to do. So I am very happy to put things like that off, even if it is, essentially to my detriment. But yeah, I need to get out of that kind of mindset. So maybe I should just be forcing myself. I mean, I'm doing the same thing with our plans about our house. We really need to downsize the crap that we have. We have so much stuff that we just don't use. And it piles up in junk drawers and in our shed and just attic underneath the house. There's a lot of different places. I mean, we have so many clothes that just stay permanently in laundry baskets. And, every so often we'll go and we'll wash them because, they've either fallen out or they've been in there so long. We're like, when was the last time this was washed? We need to get rid of stuff if we're not using it. And I frankly would like to try to sell some of the stuff that we do have that seems like it might have some worth. I mean, I'm not talking, we're going to make $1,000 on the sale of something, but I would much prefer to try to earn some money from it versus just giving it away. Ultimately, if it doesn't sell, then I would probably donate it to like Vietnam Vets of America. But I just, I don't know what it is about using Facebook Marketplace. I was going to try to use that as an avenue to sell some of my Etsy inventory as well, and I have still not done that. It's just, I have this major block, and I don't know why, and I can't get past it. So, I talked to Mr. M about, hey, I really think we need to do this. And he's on board. He's like, yeah, we need to really tidy things up and get things in a better condition, just improve our overall environment and everything like that. And he's on board with the idea of if we can get money for things, let's go that route first and then look to donation, giveaway, if that ends up failing. So I'm hoping that with him on board, maybe that will help me move on beyond my weird roadblock with Facebook Marketplace and the idea of selling to somebody who either has to come to our house and be all up in our biz or going somewhere to meet them, which feels like an incredible hassle as well. We'll see how that goes. Pray for me. All right. Anyway, I have definitely gone off on a tangent. Let's look at our mortgage principal, which is currently as of the end of November, $220,696.01, which means we're getting really close to breaking that $220,000 mark. I'm very excited about that. So when I looked at our amortization chart for December 1st, 2025, according to that chart, our balance would be $241,700, and I think that's supposed to be 80, not 90. It could be 790 and not 80. It's $10. It's not that big a deal. And 76 cents. So definitely a nice difference there. When again looking at that chart, the number that was most close to this 220,000 landed between February 1st of 2029 and March 1st of 2029. So that's fantastic. According to our servicer's website, we have saved $23,998.60 in interest, which means we have reduced our loan by 38 payments or 3 years and 2 months. So again, great. I'm very, very thrilled about this progress. One of the things that we have had come through is we did get our property taxes, we did get our homeowners insurance. Both of those have gone up. The property taxes, I can't remember exactly how much more they were from last year, but I think it was like maybe 200 and something dollars. I was very, very surprised about our homeowners insurance. I believe it only went up like $65. I was like crazy. To me, that's crazy considering what I have heard horror stories about, recently on like TikTok and YouTube and other folks, some peers and things. So I was very, very pleased that it didn't go up an incredibly significant amount this year. But still, between those two, we will most likely have an escrow. What do they call that? We won't have enough in our escrow account according to what our servicer requires you to have, which I want to say is the equivalent of 2 months' payments, escrow payments in reserve. So if I've done the calculations properly, which there's a great chance I didn't, we would be possibly short $165. And so if that's the case, then when they do their assessment and they tell us, you're $165 short, we will just pay that outright. If it's more, if I've calculated wrong and it's more than 165, we will still pay that outright because we do not want our payment that we are making currently, the $875 twice a month, to go up. And it would if we rolled our escrow, the difference in the escrow expectations into our current payment, it would bump that higher. I have looked into whether we can disengage our property tax payments and our homeowners insurance from our mortgage payment, and there is a process. You have to apply for stuff, and I think that our loan to value has to be at a certain amount. I can't imagine that we don't meet that qualification. I'll be honest, I didn't look super, super deeply into it. It was more, is this even possible? And the answer is yes. There are hoops that you have to jump through. I don't know. I don't know if it's for us, if it's worth it to take the time and effort to do that. We would certainly need to figure out a new way to save up for our homeowners and our property taxes as a separate sinking fund. I almost feel like I would want us to essentially like double pay that now. So be doing our normal payments, but holding back however much we think next year's is going to cost. So we have that in place. Let, of course, what we've built up through our normal process of pay out, and then at the end of next year, because we would have the money already ready to go, see what we needed to do to get rid of, to detach those from one another for the year 2027. I'll be honest, so far, with this year, we'll have to kind of see what the dollar amount is. It may not be that big of a deal, and I don't know if it'll be worth the hassle and the effort. It would certainly mean we wouldn't have to carry an escrow balance that had a particular minimum. We would only need to save up how much we think the next year's costs are going to be, which those can change with the winds. So I don't know. But it would mean we would be required to make our payments ourselves, make sure that we don't miss anything like that. And I don't know. We'll have to talk about that more. I think Mr. M is kind of leaning more towards the if it's not broken, don't fix it and leave it be. We have other fish to fry. So we'll see where that ends up landing. But that's kind of all of the details as far as the mortgage is concerned, which means this is our colorful representation of what we have saved. So since we started this process in April, we have reduced our principal by $10,983.94, which is wonderful. I'm kind of sad that we didn't quite make that extra like $17 to get to the $11,000. If we hadn't had, those extra costs during the second pay period, we certainly would have, with how everything was portioned out, the 20% distributions, I'm sure we would have made it to that $11,000 mark. But being where we are, we were still able to add, I think it was 3 of these squares. If it wasn't 3, then it was at least 2. So we are now at $10,500 saved, and soon to be $11,000. And we are almost done with this particular line, and that is wonderful. We'll be able to move on to the next one and just continue to see in a very colorful and visual way the progress that we are making. So I'm really, really excited about that. Of all of the things we're doing, the investing and the mortgage payoff are the most important to me. An emergency fund is absolutely very, very critical, 1,000%. But and saving for our long-term goals, we have a lot of things that we need to get done around this house, of course, is important too. But the investing and the mortgage affect our ability to retire the most. And the more we can pay off on the mortgage, the faster we can get that paid off, the less of a burden those costs would be in retirement, especially if we're hoping that we can make something work to retire much earlier than the original age 70 we were kind of looking at before. Right now, the timing, if we were to be able to financially retire, even if it was tight or whatever, at Mr. M's age 62, which would put me at age 59, we would still, at least as far as the calculations are telling us, we would still have probably another 5 to 8 years that we needed to pay till we got our mortgage paid off. And that's with us doing what we're doing now for another 10 years from, like today. So anything we can do to accelerate how much we are putting towards extra principal payoffs or extra principal payments is going to help us, in the long run. And same thing with more opportunities, or the more that we can put towards investing, at least for our Roth IRAs, because right now we are not maxing those out. The funds just aren't there with everything else that we're doing and we need to take care of. But the more we can invest, the more potential we have for increasing that bucket of money that we have in investments, which would be very, very critical to us if we were trying to do an earlier retirement, because we would have to rely on those funds, the invested funds, to cover or to bridge the gap until one or both of us is able to hit our full retirement age and do Social Security then, which would be 67 for both of us. So they're depending on what timing we do, there could be anywhere from a 10, well, no, not a 10, probably an 8 to, however many, depending on how long we decide to keep working or how long the employers keep employing us, to get to that 67 age and be able to trigger Social Security to help with the costs. But of course, if we are able to pay this house off, then the costs that we need to cover are also going to shrink significantly too. So anyway, I don't really want to get into an investing conversation. We will talk about what our snapshot for the 1st of December, or like the first week-ish of December, what those numbers look like on a different video. But this is where we are for our mortgage payoff. This is where we are for our long-term goals. And this is what our budget ended up looking like for the second pay period of November. All right. Well, I want to thank you for watching, sticking with me to the end to see, what I decided to babble on about. I do appreciate you taking the time. And as always, if you have any questions, any concerns, if there's something that you would like me to touch on, how we handled a particular situation, if I have those answers, I'd be happy to share them. Just note your questions, etc., down below in the comments. And thank you. I hope you guys have a fantastic day, and we will see you soon. Bye for now.